Did you read the other day that Stephen Colbert is going to be writing the Lord of the Rings prequel?
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? He's writing, I think, so Warner Brothers has two more Lord of the Rings movies in production that are midquels, right? They take place between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I believe both are going to be directed by Andy Serkis, who is coming back to play Gollum as well. The first one, I think, is already finished because they're supposed to start shooting in a few months in New Zealand. Ian McKellen is coming back. I believe Elijah Wood is coming back. Kate Winslet has been signed as the female lead, though her role is not known at this point. And then, Stephen Colbert is going to write the follow-up to that. I don't know how that's going to shake down, but let it be said, Colbert is a highly intelligent, very, very talented guy. So
Huge
maybe,
fan. He knows everything there is about
Yes.
Lord of the Rings. Super fan, yeah. All right, everybody, welcome. If it is Friday, it's time for another episode of Entertainment Exposed. Right here, I am your co-host, Scott Fullerton from the Left is Straight Podcast Network. And with us, as always, the handsome and charming Mr. David Reddish. David, how we doing, sir?
I am doing lovely. It is a beautiful Southern California day, Miss Scott. How are you?
I am doing well. We have sunshine. It's still not warmed up yet, but it's like the lottery numbers here. It's 55 one day, 78 the other, 32 the next. You just don't know what you're going to get, and the odds of dressing right are just as equally bad for you here. So what can you do?
Sounds like
How
an adventure.
Are you doing? Everything else going good, though? You've been busy news as always. I mean,
oh, gosh. Yeah. Really, really busy with the show. You know, wars and chickening out and scandals. And it's just never ending. It's a lot to process most days, especially this week has been rough with the whole I'm threatening genocide. Oh, no, actually, we're just going to give you everything you want. It's like, so we're surrendering now? Is that what's going on? Like, this is, what a mess. What a mess. And the thing that gives me comfort is Kalshi, the online betting site, now says his odds of being impeached are at 78%. So that's fun.
Oh, my goodness. I loved your little taco video. I mean, that guy is recanting more times. Oh, my gosh. It is crazy. But
Taco Tuesday.
We'll save that for your show. We got to tune in the David Reddish show, but let's jump in here. I always like to start with the movies. We talked about Super Mario Galaxy going to be a big open, and yes, it was. Global total of 372 million, 130 of that domestic. The budget was only 110 for it, so huge there. Project Hail Mary, we talked about it needing to hit 500. In 3 weeks, it's at 420 million. So it's almost where it needs to be. And I was kind of impressed to see The Drama, a new movie with Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, had a pretty good opening, had a $28 million global opening, 14 million domestic. And I think its whole budget was only like 28 million. So good weekend at the box office.
I mean, comparatively, yes, the box office is not what it used to be in the fact that we can only name 3 sort of important films, one of which was already several weeks from release. It's telling, like, you know, I sound old when I say I remember when there was a big movie every single week. That really wasn't that long ago. It was maybe 5 years ago, we had some major release every single week. We had events. Everybody went to the movies all the time, and it was a lot of fun. But people don't do that anymore. I tried to see, this is interesting. So I tried to see Project Hail Mary on Friday, and I went to a local multiplex just up the street, and I could not get into that screening a half hour before it started because there were only 6 rows in the entirety of the cinema. 30 seats, 30. That's it. And that's when they put the second run movies. And then the big Super Mario Galaxy, that was in, the big 100, 200, 500 seat theaters. That's very interesting to me that it seems like it was these screening rooms are built for movies to only be relevant when they first open and then they disappear. I also can remember the days when something like Titanic or Saving Private Ryan, those were movies that were, or Lord of the Rings, they were in theaters for months,
Right.
sometimes, and people still went to see that. It's people have gotten maybe a little too spoiled, a little too lazy with the whole streaming mess. But I don't know. There's still nothing like going to a cinema. Now that the exhibitors make it fun to sit through 45 minutes of ads just to get to the damn movie you paid way too much money for. So anyway, that's your mini rant for this episode.
And they're not giving the new dollars amount too. I mean, what is it, like 3 times what it used to be at a movie
I
theater
think
10
at
years ago?
least
So
that much, probably depending on where you go. Now with theaters charging for preferred seating, they don't just charge for reserved seating. If you want to sit in a good seat, they charge you more for that. There are all kinds of just nickel
right.
and diming, and the movies used to be something everybody could do at all income levels because it was
Exactly.
under $10 to see a first run movie, and you could go see a movie several times in the theater if you really enjoyed it. And I certainly did that. I did that with all the Star Wars
Oh
movies,
yeah.
up to I think Rise of Skywalker, at which point I said, I'm out, everybody. But there you have it.
Well, what's your big story of the week, my friend? Anything to hit your hot button?
Well, so there was a story in the Hollywood Reporter yesterday detailing how it is not AI that is driving jobs away from Southern California. It's other problems. Usually, mostly that it's very expensive to film here, and we don't. Newsom has instituted new tax rebates, which has brought a lot of filming back. But the bigger issue is that nobody's making TV or movies anymore. It's like in the post they blame, this article in the Hollywood Reporter blamed the era of peak television. So that was the early 2000s where you had incredible programs like The Sopranos or Sex and the City or Battlestar Galactica, Game of Thrones. People were excited about stories that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. They weren't going to go on forever. They weren't just going to keep doing seasons, churning them out like a sausage factory. And of course, that led into the streaming wars where Netflix and Amazon and Apple TV all wanted to compete with major studios. So the major studios threw money at their streaming services. And of course, we've talked about that on the show before, how that ultimately screwed up a lot of really big legacy brands, such as Star Wars. People don't want to see a Star Wars movie in a theater anymore. They want just expect to see it on streaming. And that has sort of undermined the entire business model for a lot of these big studios.
Right.
That really struck me as someone who knows friends. I actually was hanging out with a friend of mine yesterday who has worked on every big science fiction movie. He's worked on television, incredible designer, extraordinary at what he does. He hasn't worked in 3 years. In the 3 years, to the point where now he's considering maybe he should just retire completely. He's done well financially. So he's thinking of selling his house and he'll just retire early and that'll be the end of it because he doesn't know if he ever is going to work again because he's not alone in that. So it's an interesting state of entertainment affairs when it's like the business just isn't really doing much anymore. It's like they're not even trying to make money. I don't, or it's too expensive to make money. I don't quite understand this mentality, but that's where we are right now.
Right, right. Yeah, I think I just read about that. I think Hollywood's down another 3%
Yeah,
in hiring or something like that. So it's not reverse trending at all. It's still going downhill. So
yeah.
very much so.
On the
I
upside, there are some interesting movies in development, but we can get to that in a second. What else do you have?
Well, we like to shout our friends here. Obviously, we've had some good friends on the show,
Yeah.
and we're still trying to get Artie on. His scheduling has been really tough. We're going to have Johnny next week. But I saw something that came across Variety, I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was Deadline. And I'm all excited. I sent him an email yesterday. But my buddy Mikey Montemayor just sold a concept to Netflix. It's
Ooh.
in the romantic comedy genre. It's called Court Date, and it's going to be produced by Greg Berlanti, of all places. So we have a
Oh, I
gay
did see
writer
this.
and a
Yeah.
gay producer putting this together for Netflix. It's going to be under Greg's production company, along with his partner, Sarah Schechter. So it's really not giving too many details what it's about. It's called Court Date, and supposedly it's a romantic comedy centered around 2 young lawyers on opposite sides of a legal case that fall in love. But Mikey is a great writer, and I've had him on the show a few times as a comedian because writing was so hard with everything going on with Writers Guild strikes and Hollywood going down. He went to stand-up and does, as a writer, he's done very good in stand-up. And he was supposed to actually be one of the headliners for my fundraisers in Palm Springs a couple years ago, but was on his honeymoon. But I'm so excited for Mikey. So we're going to have him on in a couple weeks. But just Greg Berlanti and Netflix, that's an accomplishment. I'm excited.
Yes, it is. Berlanti is a very good producer, so I'll be interested to see what comes of this. Netflix projects, some of them end up in development hell, but not as much as with the big studio. So I would imagine that this is going to get made and it will be pretty pure to the original vision.
And I have no idea. It doesn't clue. I mean, Mikey's an openly gay writer. Greg's obviously an openly gay producer. I have no idea if this is an LGBT skewed show or not, or if it's just regular. I have no idea yet, but I'll find out. Like I said, I sent him an email yesterday. Hopefully I'll get some inside scoop relatively soon. But I won't be able to tell anything yet because I guess there's NDAs involved somehow. But okay.
That's fun. Speaking, I want to pivot to another queer film. This one is somewhat controversial, so I have many thoughts. Basic Instinct, possibly the epitome of trashy 90s erotic thrillers, is getting a remake. Apparently, Sharon Stone is too old for Basic Instinct 3 now that she's in her 70s. Maybe that's for the best, given the quality of Basic Instinct 2. The less about that said, the better. Basic Instinct is, of course, the story of a cop who falls in love with a bisexual woman who's an author and who might be a serial killer, but he's not sure. And the original made Sharon Stone into a megastar because she was so unflinching in her performance as this really, really trashy bisexual character. Queer people at the time, and maybe you could speak to this more because I was very, very little, so I don't remember this too well. But queer people at the time really protested the movie because they thought it was such a negative portrayal of gay stereotypes of a woman. You can't have a woman that's actually more interested in women than men. Like, she's with a woman, but she pivots to the man because, of course, that's what all women want. And of course, there's also the whole idea that, women are dangerous and they're evil. They may, but they might put on, a lesbian show for you before they kill you if you're lucky. There were lots of sort of tropes like that in Basic Instinct. Now, that being said, Sharon Stone absolutely understands the assignment. She's hysterically funny to me in that movie. It's a great performance. Basic Instinct is getting a remake, and the person that is circling it right now is Emerald Fennell. She is the Oscar-winning writer-director. She just did the new Wuthering Heights biopic. She did Saltburn. She did Promising Young Woman. And I don't know, the idea of having a feminist British writer, a woman, tackling Basic Instinct, I mean, that would be very interesting to see what she would do to sort of subvert a lot of the elements of Basic Instinct that maybe have not aged very well.
Yeah, very true. I mean, it's interesting to see how they'd come up with it. I was reading an article the other day. Some of the stars and creators of The L Word has a new production deal coming out now. I think I took some notes. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, it's being developed as a series for Amazon Studios by Charlie Koval. He did The End of the Fucking World, if you remember that, or Chaos. So he's developing the series for Amazon, and it's based on Kate Mennings, or Monings, however you say that, and Laisha Haley's New York Times bestselling book, So Gay for You Friendship, Found Family, and the show that started it all. They were big L World people. So I'm interested to see. I haven't heard too much about that, but I saw that's in development, and that could be interesting.
That could be very, very cool. It's interesting. The L Word it's maybe not as successful or widely seen as a lot of other famous shows. I don't know, Desperate Housewives or Grey's Anatomy or what have you, other kind of soapy type shows. But the people that watch it are absolutely diehard about it. And so I think more an L Word would be very, very interesting. I think those are stories that are always just compelling to be told. So yeah, that would be awesome, actually.
And one of my favorite interviews was Elizabeth Keener. She's just a great interview and was a really good actress in there. And I still get comments or repeats on that. I see the show gets watched quite a few times, that interview. So yeah, definitely fan favorite for sure.
That's cool. In Amazon news, they are also pressing forward with more Rings of Power, contrary to haters sparking rumors on the internet that the show was going to be canceled because, oh my gosh,
Right.
nobody watches it. It's actually very successful. It is extremely expensive. But as a Tolkien fan myself, I think it's great. So this excited me this week that we have more Rings of Power. They're about to shoot season 3 right now. More coming down the pipeline. If you saw the end of season 2, the season 2 finale was just fantastic. The show chronicles the creation of the magical rings from Lord of the Rings and the downfall of Sauron, the evil Dark Lord who is trying to get his ring back through the original story. So we get origin stories of some of the major Lord of the Rings characters and a lot fleshed out of the the very elaborate backstory to those movies. And it's just gorgeously junky stuff to watch. It's action packed. It's beautiful people. I absolutely love it.
Nice. Did you read the other day that Stephen Colbert is going to be writing the Lord of the Rings prequel?
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? He's writing, I think, so Warner Brothers has 2 more Lord of the Rings movies in production that are midquels, right? They take place between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I believe both are going to be directed by Andy Serkis, who is coming back to play Gollum as well.
Right.
The first one, I think, he's already finished because they're supposed to start shooting in a few months in New Zealand. Ian McKellen is coming back. I believe Elijah Wood is coming back. Kate Winslet has been signed as the female lead, though her role is not known at this point. And then, yeah, Stephen Colbert is going to write the follow-up to that. I don't know how that's going to shake down, but let it be said, Colbert is a highly intelligent, very, very talented guy. So
Huge
maybe,
fan. He knows everything there is about Lord
yes.
of the Rings. Super fan, yeah. So it could be interesting to see how he brings that. And he has great comic wit, obviously. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting when I read that a week or so ago.
That's
I
very,
have
very
something
cool.
I want your opinion on here if we're ready to move on, Mister.
Okay.
Great pedigree. Interesting to see how it plays out. But I read this today and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. They are going to remake Tom Wolfe's Bonfire of the Vanities into a
Yes.
television series for Apple TV. Now, you
Yes.
remember that the movie was a complete disaster with Tom Hanks
Yes.
and Bruce Willis and Melanie Griffith and Kim Cattrall. But the
Yeah.
pedigree for this series, David E. Kelly is going to be
Yes.
writing it, who I absolutely love. Matt Reeves, who was with The Batman,
Yes.
is set to direct and executive produce. So the book was actually pretty good. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with the pedigree now compared to how bad that damn movie was back in the day. Do you have any thoughts on this one at all?
I mean, you beat me to this. So Bonfire of the Vanities is actually one of my favorite books.
Yes.
I think it's just an extraordinary piece of writing and so perfectly captures New York in the 1980s and the rise of figures such as Donald Trump, unfortunately. And you're absolutely right that the original movie is just hideously bad, directed by Brian De Palma. He was the wrong director for it. The whole thing was completely miscast. And I think most importantly, they softened the lead character, Sherman McCoy, who is Tom Hanks in the original movie, who is a Wall Street trader. He sees himself as a master of the universe because this is when the stock market was booming in the 80s. And he becomes a wealthy man based on that. He's accused of murdering a young black teenager, and that's what sets the entire movie and story in motion. It will be interesting to see if they keep Sherman as thoroughly unlikable as he is in the book, because he's kind of a terrible person that
Yeah.
you really don't mind if he gets screwed by the end of the story. There are decent characters in the book, but in the original movie, they either left them out or they removed them or changed them in fundamental ways wherein they wanted to soften some of the racial politics, which is very key to the story. The tensions between white folks and black folks in New York at that time, the rise of figures like Al Sharpton. There's a character that's very, very clearly supposed to be Al Sharpton, who is sort of portrayed as a demagogue in the book, and a tough old Jewish judge who is played by Morgan Freeman in the movie for some reason. And it completely sort of destroys the entire point of the story. Bonfire of the Vanities, as I say, is a phenomenal, phenomenal book. But the thing about a book is you can read a story about reprehensible people, and if the writing is good enough, and if the personality of the writer is strong enough, you don't care that people are terrible when you're reading it. But watching that on screen, you can't really translate the writer's voice very easily. And watching people be awful on screen, it's very, very different to watch things happen as opposed to sort of imagine it happening the way it appears on the page. That said, you are absolutely 100% right. David E. Kelley, who created Ally McBeal and The Practice and Boston Legal, one of the great, great writers of legal dramas of our time. And Matt Reeves, who directed, Rise of the Planet of the Apes and The Batman, another, extraordinary talent. I think personally, you say you read the book, right, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah. I think there is a great movie or mini series to be made of Bonfire of the Vanities, but it will take someone being absolutely fearless to make it. And it will be interesting to see how it plays now in the post Black Lives Matter era, in the post Me Too era, in Donald Trump's second term, during this time when we're examining America's relationships with corporations and with stock traders and how the market is supposedly going strong, but Americans can't pay their rent or buy groceries. These are ideas that are still very, very relevant, as is the idea of the press. So there's also an alcoholic journalist that sort of eggs on this horrible trial situation for Sherman and all the racial politics of the main story. He's played by Bruce Willis in the original movie, even though he's supposed to be British and much older.
Yeah.
He's kind of he's based on a real Anthony Hayden Guest. That's his name. He's based on Anthony Hayden Guest, who's a real British journalist, also with a peppering of maybe Christopher Hitchens in there. I would have a lot of fun casting this, given the opportunity to see who could play the very waspy Sherman, who could play the British drunkard, who could play Sherman's wife, who's this emaciated, spindly, bitter figure, and his mistress, who's supposed to be younger and vivacious and just kind of selfish and manipulative.
Right.
There's a lot to be done here. I'm excited about it.
I think, like I said, the pedigree is amazing. So we'll see. And Apple does not do bad stuff usually. So we'll see what they'll even put on the air if it doesn't come up. But with David's writing, I mean, the writing is always spot on. I'm looking forward because I was a big fan of the book, as you were, but I did not like the movie at all. I was excited to watch the movie back in the day, but So very interesting. What else you got? I got a couple of throwaway pieces here. You have anything new and exciting?
I mean, I have just a few little sort of rumorish bits. Well, first, one is not a rumor. One is the director, Steven Soderbergh, has come out to talk about his dead Star Wars movie, The Hunt for Ben Solo, which would have picked up the story after Rise of Skywalker and would have brought Adam Driver, whose character is dead, back to the role of Ben Solo and focused on him. It is not happening. It is absolutely dead, despite there being some fan outcry and some push to save the film, to push Dave Filoni and the leadership, Josh D'Amaro at Disney, to actually make it happen. I think this is a good thing because I think Adam Driver, this is going to be controversial. We could have a live show on this where we debate people. But I think Adam Driver was very miscast in that role. I know some people love him as an actor. I do not. I didn't quite understand the point of the character, and some of that's because a lot of the writing was not good. He coalesces very well in The Last Jedi, but in the other two movies, he's just kind of, what is the point of this character? What's he trying to do? It's interesting that Soderbergh has already moved on from it and says that it's dead. And there's some question about, well, will the script, which Soderbergh co-wrote with Adam Driver, will it leak? Will it become like a mythic sort of Star Wars project in the same way the original Star Wars Episode 9, Duel of the Fates, has gained this amazing following because it's a terrific story and it would have vastly improved the sequel trilogy. It's an interesting time for Star Wars fans because nobody really knows what's going on and there doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement for The Mandalorian and Grogu or Star Wars Starfighter, the two new movies that are coming, one later this year and then one, I believe, next year. So interesting time for Star Wars fans. There's also a big rumor about another piece property, Gremlins 3, which is officially happening, to be written and directed by Chris Columbus, who wrote the original movie. It looks like the original cast, including Zach Galligan, will be coming back, but Jenna Ortega of Wednesday fame Wednesday Addams, out of the Scream movies, she's being eyed as the female lead right now. We don't really know what the story is, but we know Gizmo the Mogwai is involved somehow. And of course, eventually gremlins reappear. I'm somebody that loves the original Gremlins film. I think it's a very strange blend of a holiday movie, science fiction horror, and like slapstick comedy. And somehow it works in like all three, triptychs. It's absolutely wonderful. And Gizmo is one of the most memorable movie characters out there, certainly in the past 50 years. So I'm looking forward to it. There was also a show that came out that not too many people saw called Secrets of the Mogwai, which explored Gizmo's origins. That's on HBO, and I encourage people who are Gremlin fans, look it up because it's actually a lot of fun and it's very well written, surprisingly. So that coming down the pipeline, I know a lot of people are excited. And Avatar 4, we come back to Avatar 4, which James Cameron said last week that, it was full speed ahead. Now reports are saying, no, that's not quite true because the budget is still way, way too high. It doesn't seem like there's much cultural interest in it. And that's with a quarter of the movie, about 25% of the movie has already been shot. Cameron did this during production of the first three movies because he wanted certain actors at certain ages. And it's not clear what will happen to that footage if the fourth movie doesn't happen. But like we've said on the show before, I don't know that the world is clamoring for more Avatar. It's visually, it's a knockout. It has an incredible cast. Cameron knows how to direct action, possibly better than anyone else alive. But that's not enough to suspend a story that just really isn't that interesting.
Right. Interesting. Wow. I had not heard a couple of those, so that's very cool.
Yeah.
I am bringing on a special correspondent next week because of your day job. So next Tuesday, the day before we record, is International Buffy Day. And they're having 2 rallies across the country to try to get Hulu to change their mind. One in Santa Monica by you at, I think it's called Brothers Coffee Shop or something, or
yeah.
I look and see. And one in New York City at Union Square there. But they're doing a write-in campaign. And my friend Josh Orozco is probably the preeminent Buffy fan I've ever met. And so he's going to the rally next Tuesday. He's going to give us a quick little update to talk about on Wednesday we record what went on with it. But I think it's interesting that they haven't given up 100%. It's about 90% dead, 98% dead. But we'll see if this does anything for it.
I mean, Buffy fans are rabid. If somehow the Buffy revival gets revived, if it's resurrected, it will be interesting to see what direction they go in, if they try and salvage what's been done before or bring in some of that cast that now no one's going to see, or if it's more we need to do something else completely and start over from scratch. And if that's the case, if Sarah Michelle will stick around for it, because part of what finally attracted her to depart, which was something she never wanted to play Buffy again, it was Chloe Zhao and her take on the material. So we'll see. I don't know. It's interesting with the Buffy revival. It's like clearly there is thirst for this. So I don't know why Disney Hulu is being so aloof about it. Just like they don't really seem to care very much. And it's like this is an easy way to make money. It was an easy way to have a hit. So why are you not doing more when the audience is there? I don't quite understand it. But instead we get, all kinds of remakes of Disney animated movies that nobody really wants to see.
Yeah, they'll throw away a couple $1 million for The Bachelor and something that's stupid, and not put money behind something that is definitely a hit. So very interesting. I had nothing else fun on the business side. I know we read about that the Directors Guild actually surprised everyone and did a new 4-year contract over the weekend.
Yeah.
So that's going to prevent that, and they're hoping that's going to move things up for the writers, the writers is the one that did it. They're hoping it's going to help with directors and actors. It's already brought the actors back to the table. They were going to hold off till June. They had one kind of range of talks a month or so ago.
Yeah.
They were going to come back in June. Now they're coming back the 24th of April to talk because of this Writers Guild strike. So we'd have guaranteed 4 years without a writer's strike, which is important. They'll see if it'll help grow the business back. But That's just business news and not as much fun for our fans, but it's interesting for the entertainment biz as a whole. But that's all I had. Anything else you want to finish up on, my friend?
I mean, the one other thing I would add is that in the theater world right now, making a splash on Broadway is the revival of Cats called the Jellicle Ball, which integrates ballroom culture, the kind that you saw in shows like Pose or in Paris is Burning, and sort of transplants the Cats story, such as it is. Cats is not big on story, but it transplants that to the ballroom scene and completely reimagines the story. Andrew Lloyd Webber was in New York this week to see the official premiere. Friends of mine saw it in previews and said it was absolutely spectacular. My interest is peaked. Cats is not my favorite show. I'm not a big fan of dance shows generally, but if they found a way to actually give the thing a stronger plot and a better story and to work a lot of queerness into it, I mean, that would be enough to get me to take a look again.
I've heard the same thing. I've heard this about. I was never a Cats fan, never have been, and but I have friends that went and saw Jellicle Ball and were very impressed and enjoyed it a lot. I actually had a friend of mine just interviewed last week, the lead that plays David in the new Lost Boys, and he saw the opening last week. Said it was amazing. The
Okay.
Said the production of it is out of this world. I'll kind of give a report on that when I can. Said he doesn't see how it's even going to be possible to bring that production on the road for a touring company. But the production is just freaking out of this world at the theater. And the guy that plays David, the lead, and I can't remember his name, it's a 3-word like Ian something that plays the lead as David, is just absolutely amazing. He was the lead in so many great plays recently, or musicals lately. So we'll have to find out a little more on that because I'm a huge Lost Boys fan.
That would be great.
All right. Well, we made it through another week, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. We are here every Friday, right here on the Left of Straight Podcast Network. You can look for my Left of Straight show interviews that come on usually once a week or so. And of course, David is there every day giving us the politic news on the David Reddish Show. Remind everyone where they can find that and follow you on social media, my friend.
You can find the show at The David Reddish Show on YouTube. Simply search the name. And you can find me on Instagram at The Gay Magneto, all one word.
There you go. And we're at Left of Straight on Instagram. Have a fantastic week, everyone. Enjoy, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.